Welcome to the Shadow Things Podcast.
What is up, everybody, and welcome back to the Shadow Things Podcast. My name is Vanessa Spencer. With me, as always, is your host with the most, Brent Fair. What do you got for us today?
Well, today we are going to be talking about everything shadowy and demony.
Of course.
You know, the blackest of black, the hottest of hot, the deepest of deep, fiery topics of demonology. A little bit of angelology and, you know, all things related to the scariest shit you could imagine.
Needless to say, if you've been scratching your head about it, so is everybody else, and we're here to put it all out there.
Yeah, for sure. So we're going to go over some facts, some history. We're going to go and talk about some of the more relevant mainstream cases that you've probably heard about, and give you some delivery on that. But first, we wanted to thank you for being here for sure. So this is our third official episode of the Shadow Things Podcast. Find us on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Spotify, Stitcher, Red Circle, or wherever you can find your favorite podcast.
Oh, yeah.
So also, we have our own website. It's shadowthings.net. You can also, you know, if you want to send us an email, tell us we're a bunch of jerks, or maybe pat us on the back, send us an email at talk@shadowthings.net. That's talk@shadowthings.net. Also, I wanted to remind you, if you're on your favorite podcast distribution point or on YouTube, please do subscribe to our podcast. Keep up with the latest up-to-date episodes that we put out bi-weekly. And most of all, obliterate that like button. Just hammer that like button. You know, so, and it's not about a monetary deal here. We're not looking for fame or anything. We just want to get analytical points, you know, see how the podcast is doing. We do that when you help us track it by hitting the like button and subscribing. So also tell your friends about us, share if you'd like, and you know, share the joy and share the shadowy things. So without further ado, we are going to get into the show. So all things demonology. It's really a topic I've been wanting to get into for a long time. There's really nothing deeper when it comes to paranormal.
I'm going to say that's the rock bottom of the paranormal. Like, not even the rock bottom. That's just the scariest shit that there is, in my opinion. It
is. I mean, it goes beyond the boogeyman. It goes beyond the little boy ghost hiding in the corner who's sad, or the lost lover romantic ghost story. You know, the old lady in the lighthouse. I mean, we're talking about the officers of hell. You know,
100%.
The fallen angels. So the darkest of dark. But let's start by identifying what demonology is. And I want to preface this by saying that you and I are not experts.
100%.
We are not demonologists.
That would be cool, but whatever, you know.
Yeah. So a person like John Zaffis, you know, very, very tenured, very focused in the study of demonology. There are other people that do the same thing. We are not those people. We are commentators on topics of whole, but this happens to be one of the most important and deep topics that people want to hear about. So, and I have my own personal opinions on, as to whether or not demons are real or what they could and could not be and all that stuff. So that's where we're going to dig in, but let's define demonology. So the Oxford Dictionary defines demonology as the study of demons or demonic belief. Now, there are all kinds of different definitions just according to the source that you go and research, but that's the Oxford version. University of Hawaii cites demonology as a view that abnormal mental function is due to the occupation by an evil being of the mind of a person. So basically defining demonology or possession as a mental disorder.
Wow.
Which is all part of this.
Yeah.
So where does demonology and the belief in demons originate from? It just didn't come out with the 1973 film The Exorcist. It didn't come out in the 1800s. It was prevalent throughout history of humanity. So angelology and demonology and Judaism became more highly developed during the period. So the Babylonian exile, everything started with the fall of Babylon. So you're talking the 6th through 5th centuries before Christ, BC. Back when there was Zoroastrianism. So the roots reach way back, and there's also points and arguments among scholars that is really no definable time when demonology or the belief that there are fallen angels came to actually be, but it's thought to be somewhere around 6,000 years before Christ. So this goes way back. What are demons? So what kind of classes are demons? What is a demon? A lot of people say it's fallen angels, and there's a whole bunch of stuff behind that, as to why people decipher the biblical text and come up with the fallen angel theory through stories. But it's thought there's 2 classes of demons. So first you got your non-human separable souls, and then you got your discarnate spirits, which have never inhabited a body. So someone who has not passed, nor are they human. And some may refer to those as elementals or something from a natural state of the earth, but not human. So they've never been human or inhabited a person. So it really just depends on your religious background and your thought process and your personal beliefs as to, first of all, whether or not demons are real. But where did they come from? We know they're in the mainstream, in film, book, video. But in a classical sense, where did they begin? You know what I mean? How far back do you got to reach, and what are they? So those are the 2 classes that, coming from a theological standpoint, they're thought to be those 2 classes. So non-human separable souls, and then discarnate spirits, which have never been human, which makes a lot of sense. What else could they be? Now, I guess there's some thought at present time, since ufology is kind of a big thing and the study of aliens and extraterrestrials, that demons, ghosts, anything that's not human could be extraterrestrial intelligences or aliens. So that's kind of a new age mix of today's way of thinking versus the old way of thinking.
Yeah.
So very cool stuff. So talk a little bit about the demons themselves. So if there are actually demons and they're fallen from heaven along with Satan into the depths of fiery hell, how many are there? How many are in the officer hierarchy, that report to Satan, or you know what I mean? How many do you think there are?
I'm gonna say, I don't know that you could put a number on it. I don't know.
Yeah. I
But I've also heard that there's like a couple hundred that you can name. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I guess it depends on where you source the information from. My way of thinking as a kid and growing up was that there's just the devil, and he just kind of worked alone. He was the opposite of God, and he didn't have minions that had duties under him or reported to him. But
I was always under the understanding that that's how it was. There was Satan, and he had his minions.
Yeah. Well, here in a little bit, after we discuss a few more things, we're going to talk about demonology and numbers. And then one of the things that I'll touch on is the vast amount of variations of demons in that hierarchy. There are some beliefs, some theological thinkers and scholars that believe that there are up to 6,000 individual demons. And that number actually comes from, and we'll touch on it later, it comes from a biblical text. So a story from biblical times passed along, down the ages. So we'll get into that here in a minute. But, the demonic hierarchy. So included in the demonic hierarchy are demons popularized by the Bible and brought into the mainstream by books and movies. Each one serves a specific purpose. So they all have kind of a job to do, and they're all a twisted image of God or, someone from heaven.
Spooky.
Yeah. So different demonology scholars and religions categorize the demons in different orders, but their motives and vices are all the same. They're all intent on tarnishing the relationship between you and God, creating sin, havoc, and famine, and all this other yummy stuff that we'll get into here in just a little bit. But it's all spooky shit, man. If it's all real, oh man, put me on the next train.
Yeah.
So, but anyhow, who's at the top? So, and this is just a generalized list, referenced specifically from the Bible, brought into mainstream media. So, and it starts with Lucifer.
Not Tom Ellis.
Not Tom, even as Tom Ellis.
I just got to make that clear.
So, Lucifer, emperor of hell and demon of pride. So one of the 7 deadly sins. So he holds the pride kind of trophy there. So Lucifer's at the top. And then one and the same, and I never knew there's a difference. You have Satan, prince of hell and demon of witchcraft. Oh, come on. So
didn't you say that in some... I don't remember that Satan was like, it could be multiple, there could be multiple Satans or something. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, so the word Satan and Lucifer are not actual proper names. They're references to, well, like for instance, Lucifer, the morning star.
Yeah.
And Satan is the doer of evil. That's how they're specific names of actions, I guess, instead of proper names of people. So it really depends on how you source it. However, they are certainly not proper names, but Lucifer and Satan seem to be at the top of everyone's list.
Uh-huh.
And then you get into the less heard but more important names that have different purposes as well. Leviathan.
I've heard this.
Right after Satan. Prince of hell and demon of the heresy and envy. So probably referenced more in ancient times, mid 1500s backwards, with the heresy being the primary duty of Leviathan, because everyone was a heretic back in those days. If you didn't go against, if you went against the Catholic Church or whatever dominant religion that you had present in your location, you were a heretic. So perhaps good old Leviathan was the doer of that deed.
Then we've got good old Beelzebub.
Yes, Beelzebub. So Lord of the Flies.
Lord of the Flies.
Which is a movie, by the way, but
and a book.
And a book, yeah, a book before the movie. Right?
Yep.
So chief of staff and demons of false gods. Beelzebub.
That's spooky.
Yes. Asmodeus. That name just sounds shitty. Like,
It starts with ass.
Yeah, it
so.
starts with ass. And then Modius. So Asmodeus, king of demons and demon of lust and wickedness.
Ew. Not interested in that.
Right. So, Adrimelech. And if I mispronounce this shit.
I was going to say, I don't even know how you just got through that just now.
Adrimelech. Great minister of Beelzebub's Order of the Fly.
So that's confusing.
Yeah, so like...
Great minister of... Okay.
It's like who overpowers one another, Beelzebub or Adrimelech? You know what I mean?
Or is he like the Beelzebub's secretary or something?
Or maybe he's his bitch or something.
I don't know.
And I don't mind saying these things.
That's totally what it sounds like.
Okay. And then Balberith, chief secretary of hell and demon of blasphemy. Probably going back again into the wicked ancient times of, 1500s and backward Rome and England, So, because you're talking about blasphemy, and again, you're a heretic. If you go against the church, it's blasphemous. So maybe he's the doer of God's name in vain and all that good stuff, and blah blah blah. But Astareth, prince of thrones and treasurer of hell. So now it's starting to sound like the city council.
It is the city council. What? The treasurer.
Yeah. So he's a treasurer. So obviously there's money in hell, I guess.
Clearly.
Maybe there's like Bitcoin and
some kind of currency.
Perhaps Elon Musk is involved, and he can retweet, the demon coin and get that price. Okay, so that's going a little far, but
we get it.
Yeah. So you need a little structure down in hell. So yeah, he's the treasurer of hell. So
that's interesting.
Then you have Varine, second prince of thrones and demon of impatience.
Oh.
I tell you what, when I'm at a red light, I think that demon's with me. Because I just
100%.
don't. I'm tired of waiting on that fucking red light. And then you have Gresil, the third prince of thrones and demon of impurity. That sounds kind of a roundabout, like the sin maker, impurity.
Okay. And then we've got...
Olivier.
I've heard that before.
I have not.
I don't know where, but I've heard it.
Yeah, Olivier, prince of archangels and demon of cruelty. Probably the one that I would not want to screw with, I guess.
I don't want to see him at the foot of my bed.
Right. Lavart.
What a name.
Yeah, that sounds like a rapper.
Lavart.
So Lavart, prince of angels. That sounds good. Prince of angels and possessor of Sister Madeline. Okay. Virir, prince of principalities. All right. Prince of principalities and demon of disobedience.
Oh, shit.
It's the principalities in this, yo. And then you have Behemoth.
Oh.
Behemoth is a night watchman of hell and Satan's cook. So when Satan is in the mood for a microwave burrito, Behemoth takes that frozen sucker and puts it in the hellish microwave. Hits 3 minutes.
Watches that bitch bowl around in the microwave.
Right. And Satan is happy.
There you go.
Put some hot sauce on it, of course.
Diablo sauce.
Now, this last one I want to talk to you a little bit about and kind of get your take on what you sort of may have heard. But
yeah.
So Samael comes at the bottom of this list, but some people would put him at the very top. So Samael, famously for being the prince of demons. So in Hebrew lore, he's known as the venom of God. So
interesting.
Yeah, he's thought to be the executioner of death sentences decreed by God. So when God says it's your turn, supposedly he's the executioner that makes that happen. So he's categorized by some scholars as being both good and evil.
Oh, that's interesting. I didn't know there was such a thing.
Yeah. So that's Samael, I guess. Now, we were talking earlier before the show. I think you referenced Samael. Have you heard any, like, why do you think he should be at the top of the list?
Okay, so going back to Tom Ellis. Now, in the show Lucifer, he is referred to as Samael. Oh. Lucifer Morningstar is Samael. And I don't know if there's any truth to that or if there's any, like, context to that, but
Well,
That's where I kind of got that from. I wondered if he was at the top of the food chain.
well, here's the deal. If there's any truth to the matter that Hollywood is driven by all things shadowy, perhaps the producers of Netflix's, I don't know, is that a Netflix show?
It is now.
An original?
Lucifer.
Okay, well, producers of Lucifer know a little bit more about hell than we do.
I would imagine.
Perhaps Samael is the #1 Duke of Hell.
I'd like to think that there's some kind of context behind that, but
That would be pretty cool. So, and there's also a class correspondence. Some of these demons are related specifically to the 7 deadly sins. So you have Lucifer, pride, Mammon, which is another, we're talking other, not classifications, but labeled demons. Avarice, I've never heard of that, that 7 deadly sin. And then lechery is held by Asmodeus. We've talked about his ass before.
of course.
Right? And then Satan is anger, that sin. Beelzebub, gluttony, being fat with his microwave burritos. Leviathan is envy. And then Belphegor is sloth. Not 3-toed either, just kind of
Sloth.
being slothy.
Right.
Which I do that as well. So
Same.
I'm impatient at red lights. Okay, so the deal is that there may be up to 6,000 different demons that people have named over the course of humanity. However, who knows? There might be like 1 or 2. Maybe there's none. Maybe.
I guess that could be.
But the fact of the matter is that if there is demons or Satan or any of those that we just talked about, their intent remains the same. So in their fallen condition, they attempt to keep humans from gaining a right relationship with God by provoking them to sin. So it's all about getting us to be bad humans so that we don't bank on a relationship with God, so God will disown us. Does that sound about right?
I guess so, yeah.
So it's not really about infesting our bodies and spinning our heads around in pea soup and going down the stairs backwards and all that stuff.
Yeah, that's the confusion for me is
That's the byproduct.
it's like they want us to be wrongdoers, but you see things like not even just on TV or Hollywood shit. You see like getting possessed and you see all these things, but like if your purpose is to make this human be a piece of shit, then why do you need his body for that? That doesn't make any sense, but I'm sure somebody out there knows what I'm talking about.
Right. Why do you need the body when you could just kind of like point at a mountain and have it crumble and kill a bunch of fucking people?
100%.
Right? I guess that's what you're getting at.
Yeah.
Well, it kind of leads me to the next thing. So they tempt humans to sin. The fallen angels or devils were believed to also cause various types of calamities, both natural and accidental. So they're viewed as being agents of famine, disease, war, earthquakes, accidental deaths. Like trying to be tricky and shit.
Yeah.
Accidental deaths. And various mental and emotional disorders, which is sad.
Yeah.
So if we got to blame it on anybody, we're going to blame it on Beelzebub.
100%.
Right?
Yeah.
Next time I'm in a shitty mood. But persons afflicted with mental diseases were considered to be demon-possessed in ancient times. Think about that.
Wow.
Persons afflicted with mental disorders were considered to be demon-possessed in ancient times. Now today, it's a perfect opposite. People who believe they are possessed are first suspected of mental illness. So it's a complete polar opposite from the way of thinking hundreds of years ago. Maybe not even hundreds of years ago.
And I've thought about this before, like, I wonder if you could, like, if somebody was really like, oh, there's demons, and like, oh, everybody else is like, oh, you're batshit crazy.
Right.
What if there's dead-ass demons, and like, nobody believes that person? That kind of stuff sits in my mind late at night. I think about it. I do.
Well, that's the thing, and when we get into some of these more infamous cases here in a little bit, some of them are really compelling. Like, the evidence and the stories behind them really make me scratch my head. Like the skeptic in me wants to say, there's no demons. It's just a bunch of mental stuff.
Give them an antidepressant or something.
Yeah.
And they're cool.
But when you couple that with, people crawling up walls and
No.
doing bodily things that their body shouldn't do, and contortions, and it makes you think.
There's not prescription drugs that are going to fix you crawling up the wall.
No.
So.
I think, and we'll touch on this a little bit later too, I think it's the mental health evaluation is probably the most important and primary stage of investigating a case of possession.
Yeah.
I think that you should look at the person and analyze their mental health and well-being. And if you're not, you're doing a disservice to that person and their family and probably yourself.
Yeah.
So I think it's very important to analyze somebody's well-being.
Yeah.
So let's do something fun. We're going to talk about demons by numbers. So a little bit of statistical tidbits here for you. So the Zoroastrian faith, and that's specific to Iranian faith, teaches that there are 3,333 demons, while other religions elevate that number to 6,000.
Wow.
Can you imagine 6,000 demons? Like that's about the size of a small township. They're all fucking demons. And when it's time to go demon people, they all just spread out all over the world. I mean, it's kind of crazy.
According to everybody in the world, I mean, that is.
Yeah. Yeah, so, and it could be one or two. It could be 3,333 demons according to the Zoroastrian faith. Who knows? But that is a number. So check this out. 1/3 of an unknown sum. We'll talk about that. According to Scripture, 1/3 of all angels fell from grace, and 2/3 remained in heaven. So when the angels became fallen and fell from grace and went to hell, only 1/3 of them did. And then the other balance, 2/3, stayed in heaven. So based on that part of Scripture, there are more angels than there are demons.
Interesting.
So if there's up to 6,000 demons, might there be 18,000-ish angels? But here's my problem. If we're all good and shit, we go to heaven, aren't we all angels? I mean, more than 18,000 people have died, and good people.
I didn't think about that.
It's kind of like, man, what's going on? And I just want to say, I'm not knocking religion or that belief in going to the pearly gates and all that stuff, because I have my own thoughts, theories, and beliefs. But think about the numbers. And these numbers are very subjective. They're sourced from places that might have inaccuracies. But
Yeah.
I really dug in to find some good data for, some of the texts that were pulled out of biblical times and stories. So the number 237. If Satan worked check this shit out. So Tom Ellis, let's just say Lucifer or Satan. If he didn't have that detective chick, what's her name?
Chloe.
So if he didn't have little Chloe and he worked alone, and there were actually no lesser demons, like his brother and all the people that pop into the show.
Yeah.
It would take Lucifer 237.8 years to visit each person on Earth. All 7.5 billion of us currently here on Earth, one time for 1 second. So it would take him 237 years to visit us one time for just 1 second of your life.
But there are claims of people having full-on conversations with the devil himself, or the devil being in their room and they can't move for 10 minutes. So that's a head scratcher.
Yeah, I mean, they could perceive their quote-unquote evil experience as being demonic or the devil. Just label that presence as the devil.
Yeah.
But if Lucifer / Satan is spending more than 1 second with somebody, I kind of feel gypped. If they're having these full-on conversations, that kind of cuts into the 237.8 years that is allotted for the rest of humanity.
Yeah.
Not that any of us want to experience.
Yeah. No, I'm not interested in that.
Right. So, kind of a squirrely way to do math, but yeah. 7.5 billion of us, takes Satan 237 years to visit us one time for 1 second. So the number is 5646. So through the New Testament, demons appear 55 times and 46 times in reference to demonic possession and exorcisms in the Bible. However, the word devil is never referenced in the Bible, but demons are. Very interesting.
Wow.
So 5546. 6,000. This is cool. So 6,000 is where you get the name Legion, or the label Legion.
Yeah.
So 6,000. Mark chapter 5, verse 1 through 20 speak of a man that was possessed by a legion of demons, being 6,000. So this poor chap, this bloke, was possessed by 6,000 microwave burrito eating fucking demons. You know what I mean? So, and legion is an ancient Roman military term used to describe an army of 6,000. So that's where you get legion, and there's a name, you know, that derives from those times. It turns into legion. So when Jesus spoke to a demon within a man, he asked its name, and it replied, "My name is Legion." Some New Testament scholars agree that the man embodies the dehumanizing oppression of Rome itself, which makes a lot of sense. But 6,000. And that kind of corresponds with that upper number of some religions believing that there are 6,000 separate demons. Not classes, but actual separate demons. So a legion of demons. The number 36. So the number 36 comes from the number of actual Vatican-trained priests that are in the United States who are authorized to perform the rite of exorcism. So you got to imagine there's probably 12.5 exorcisms going on today somewhere in the United States. You know, somebody performing the rite of exorcism that probably shouldn't be. I don't know if there's like I know from research, but is there like a Bible of exorcisms or manual, an employee guide? You know,
I wonder the same thing, because they make it sound so like, and again, I'm going back to Hollywood, because that's all anybody has to go by that doesn't actually know anything about it.
Right.
Make it sound like you have to go through some top secret ass training to be, you know, a certified exorcist.
Right. And I do have some answers for that, but the Vatican has only trained and authorized 36 within the U.S. to perform the rite of exorcism. So 36 is a number there. Now, here's the other part to that. There are 400, the number 400 is our next one, 400 Vatican-trained exorcists throughout the world.
Wow.
Now, that number is becoming more, so it's increasing as the current pope and the current church allows discussion of exorcism and, you know, that part of demonology, so they're more accepting these days. So they're actually holding conferences and allowing more discussion and action in regards to demons and exorcism and getting people trained to take care of those issues. So that is that's a lot of people, 400 people that are Vatican trained throughout the world.
Yeah.
So check this out. Number 60,000 is our next number. 60,000. This is just crazy. 60,000. So the current pope, his chief exorcist, had in his time, from being an exorcist, performed 60,000 exorcisms over 30 years before he died in 2016 at the age of 91.
Sick.
60,000. I haven't eaten that many French fries in my life.
No.
You know, I plow them son of a bitches down pretty good too.
I might have.
Yeah. So 60,000 exorcisms. And you know what's funny is that I did read a little bit more into this chief exorcist of the Pope, and he actually, out of 60,000, has claimed to have only encountered the devil himself one time in one case. It was a young man in Italy, and I don't remember the timing, but it was in the 90s before he retired. And, the other 59,999 were not the man in charge. Mm. They were those other 6,000 demons recycling and going into other people, according to, all this statistical, subjective numbering.
Yeah.
Isn't that crazy?
Very.
Yeah. So we'll talk a little bit more about, what the church labels as a person's need for exorcism and what demons are, and what is required by the church to get an exorcism. And again, we are not experts. We're talking about this from sourced shit from the internet. But I did see that the Catholic diocese said there are 4 main stages of demonic possession. And I think these are about right too. But number 1 is speaking languages otherwise unknown to the person. So basically, if I start flailing around like I'm on Ghost Adventures on the floor,
Stop.
and I start speaking fucking Swahili or something,
Yeah.
that ain't right. That's kind of shadowy. And,
I'm calling the church.
yeah, the guy with the Bible and the collar is probably going to think that number 1 has been checked off the box.
Yeah.
But he's also going to research to see if I am versed in Swahili or 7 other languages, so
Yeah.
the number 1 thing, not the top, it's not categorized in a hierarchy, but speaking languages otherwise unknown to the person is a huge thing. And that does happen in a lot of these cases of demonic possession. Number 2, demonstrating strength beyond normal capacity of the person.
So, like, strength?
Yeah, like
lifting shit and,
like boom, pop, pow.
creatine and...
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like, for example, there are cases where some of the possessed subjects throw people across the room, like literally, younger, flail, sub 100-pound subjects of demonic possession are picking up grown men and throwing them across the room. And it's really not in our physics for that to be,
Yeah.
possible.
Yeah.
Well, anything's possible, but, that's really not the norm. Or picking up furniture and whizzing it down the stairs or what have you. So demonstrating strength beyond the normal capacity of a person. Yeah, I'm pretty fucking strong, but I'm not picking up cars or, Number 3, elevated perception and having knowledge about things they shouldn't. So, and you can reference some of those examples, like in the movie The Exorcist, when Reagan was in the bed, so she's the possessed girl in the movie. And we're going to talk about The Exorcist here in a little bit, the movie, the book, and the real-life case that inspired the film and the book. But in that film, you've seen snippets or segments of that scene where the preacher or the priest was in the room and Reagan was telling him things about his mother that only he should know. Things that they have no earthly business of knowing except for that individual person. So very spooky. And there is a case, and I'm referencing back to the Pope's chief exorcism, the guy that performed 60,000. He, on that one occasion in Italy with the young man, had been told by this man things that should not have been known to that subject about his family and other things. And he had a private conversation before he went to the location of the exorcism, one of many with this individual, and was speaking to another member of clergy. I think it was another priest. And during that phone call, both him and the other priest concurred that they heard a voice come over the phone telling them all kinds of things about things that this voice should not know about, and cursing at them, stating blasphemous statements, and trying to get them really spooked. But that happened before the exorcism, even before they got to the location. So this is omnipresence. Intelligence knows too much shit about people involved in these cases.
I don't know what I would do.
Yeah, it's crazy. That's like you're getting into your head and your past. And so number 3, elevated perception, that having knowledge about things they shouldn't. And then this is kind of, I guess this would be about right, especially with mainstream, if there is a good versus evil component to demonic possession, but resisting anything sacred as number 4. So basically, kind of like when vampires see a crucifix, they go scurrying. They don't like that shit.
Yeah.
So basically an opposition to anything that's holy. So if you're...
So a rosary or...
Yeah, Bible.
The Bible.
Holy water. Mm-hmm. So when those things are administered as a part of the rite of exorcism or the events tied around trying to expel the demon. Those objects are really rejected by the subject of the possession, so they freak out and shit.
Yeah.
So those are the 4 components. So speaking weird languages, superhuman strength, knowing stuff that they shouldn't know, and a resistance to anything holy. So those are the 4 things that the Catholic diocese really looks at and kind of paints an arrow brush over the case, to see if that's something that they want to move forward with. So there's something called the U.S. Bishops Conference, and I don't know, like, the affiliations. Are they affiliated with the Vatican directly or all that stuff? I'm really speaking out of level on that, but according to the U.S. Bishops Conference website, there are 2 kinds of exorcisms, minor and major. So the major form is performed routinely during baptism. So for people that get their head dunked in the water and cleaned of all their sins, that's sacrament, or that is a part of a minor exorcism. So you're being exorcised when you're baptized.
That shit would boil if I was in it.
The major form entails the expulsion of demons and should be performed only by a bishop or a priest who has a bishop's permission. So in the Catholic Church, really the only people that should be performing an exorcism is a bishop of that church or a priest that has the bishop's permission. So really we shouldn't have a bunch of deacons, squires, altar boys. We shouldn't have anybody else from the church performing these rites of exorcism on behalf of the church. Now there might be a crazy guy next door named Charlie who uses Ouija boards, and he's spiritual and kind of spooky and known to do stuff like that might claim to be able to expel your demons, but you can almost guarantee he's not authorized by the Catholic Church to perform that job. So, and that's really just the Catholic Church, but there are numerous religions that have their own ways of authorizing and categorizing, what is possession and the needs based on that. But procedure, I checked this out. So I wasn't going to mention the actual organization, but this really kind of cracks me up a little bit. And it's kind of sad, but this is the Roman Catholic Archdiocese of Washington, so Washington State. The procedures for requesting an exorcism taken directly from their website. So there's no mention of a mental evaluation during this process. Now, there's a lot of other references that I did pick up on that did mention the mental evaluation during their processes. But it starts by saying that if you don't live in Washington State, they can't help you. It literally says that on the website, which I kind of get. But they're like, hey, if you're in Connecticut, don't fucking reach out to us for us to sweep your demons away.
That's kind of interesting.
Yeah, but they give a little finder that you can find your nearest exorcist guy.
Gosh.
Yeah. So. During the appointments, the initial contact with the Roman Catholic Archdiocese people in Washington, the priest will listen to the person's history, provide pastoral guidance, and deliverance prayers. So after praying over the person, if the priest considers it appropriate, he or she is referred to the exorcism team of the Archdiocese. So you're going straight from the initial meeting to a prayer to meeting the rest of the exorcism team. That's spooky, because I could go straight up in there and be like, I'm possessed, and then he'll say a prayer, talk to me a little bit, and then I'm straight going to the fucking full throttle exorcist team.
Ugh.
Like, to me, maybe they should put me in the mental ward or have a psychologist check me out, or
there needs to be some sort of evaluation, in my opinion.
Yeah, Sigmund Freud me on the couch and check me out first. But no, they're the Archdiocese of Washington is referring you straight to the whole full throttle team of exorcists. That's kind of wow. But and then it goes on. The exorcism team will assess your situation and determine appropriate steps. Maybe that's where the mental part comes in. But confidentiality in all cases, really, of any church is assured pretty much throughout the process. And then there are other mechanisms that deal with people who are under the age of 18. But that's just the Washington Archdiocese. Now check this out. I discovered a possible contradiction or bias of eligibility for Catholic-sponsored exorcism. Basically, the practice of who may receive a major exorcism governed by canon law, so canon law or code of law, number 1170. The following are able to receive the specialized blessing if it is deemed necessary. Number 1, Catholics. So if you're Catholic, you're good to go. Sweeping the demons out and putting that shit on the curb Tuesday morning for the trash truck to get. Right? Number 2, catechumens.
What?
Let's just skip number 2 and go straight to number 3. So another group of people can get their Tuesday morning sweeping of demons trash service.
Yeah.
But number 3, non-Catholic Christians who request it. And number 4, non-Christian believers provided, here's the but, provided they have the proper disposition, meaning they are sincere in their desire to be free of demonic influence. So I'm not Catholic, but if I come into your church, don't make me prove that I really want these motherfucking demons gone. Right?
I want to know, what is the criteria? That's the criteria. But what? How do you prove that you desire freedom?
Yeah. So if the bed is spinning around and people are vomiting and, the walls are melting and there's rotting flesh, why do I got to prove that I'm sincere?
What the fuck more do you want?
Right. Exactly. That's what I'm saying. So I think it's a little biased that the Catholic Church wants you to be pretty kind of religious.
I've always found that interesting.
So
I say that a lot.
I don't know, but let's dig into some of the good stuff here and talk about some infamous cases that we may or may not have heard of in demonology and cases of possession and all that good jazz. So does the name Annalise Michael ring a bell?
Kind of.
Yeah, I've always heard it, but in 2005 I seen the release of the movie Exorcism of Emily Rose. Man, that movie scared the shit out of me.
I almost had to leave the theater.
You saw that at the theater?
I did see it at the theater.
Shit. Yeah, it was a very troubling movie. I think the part that got me in that particular film is the time that she spent alone at the beginning of the early stages of possession, kind of that depression, the oppression part of the early stages, where she was alone in her college dorm room. Mm-hmm. And it was just kind of dark scenery, and it was so real because she was hearing things creak across the room and not very far-fetched stuff.
Right.
But they threw that into the film, and that just kind of grabbed me in, like, hey, this might have been something that could have happened. And then it went on to show all the dastardly happenings with that girl. But a very in-depth case where it turned out to be, a criminal matter in the end, and allegations of abuse on behalf of the exorcist that performed, and I believe some of the family that perpetrated the exorcism rites themselves. But yeah, there was a 2005 film called The Exorcism of Emily Rose. So Annalise, she was a young German woman. She had struggled from an early age with mental illness, so she had a predisposition to mental health issues. She was diagnosed with epileptic psychosis.
Oh.
She also experienced depression and visual and auditory hallucinations, for which she was hospitalized for. Now that's spooky. Like I I think I've had, being a believer in a lot of this stuff, I've had visual and auditory experiences. Well, if they're labeled as hallucinations, am I going to be hospitalized for it? Like, am I that far off the beaten path?
I just can't picture that.
Well, that's what happened to Annalise in this case. So, with her time, her symptoms, they intensified, growing to include an aversion towards religious iconography. So, scripture and pictures of crosses, icons of the Bible and all things biblical. And then at 22, she underwent 10 months of Catholic exorcism rites. Nearly 70 exorcisms were performed in secrecy under the order of the church. So, wow. 70 exorcisms, all on the down low, performed and sponsored by the church. So in July of 1976, Annalise passed away. The autopsy declared her death was a result of emaciation, malnutrition, and starvation at the hands of the priest and her family, who had, during the exorcisms, discontinued consultations with doctors. So the family and priest involved were investigated, charged with negligent homicide, and were found guilty of manslaughter, serving 6 months in jail and 3 years probation. Sorry, but that's not enough.
No, that's really sad.
I mean...
That's really sad.
And could you imagine the legal struggle it would be to try to prove your defendants in that case as being warriors of God instead of fuckheads who just treated...
Just suck.
Yeah, just ruined Annalise's life.
That's really sad.
Yeah, but that is a real case, though. Annalise Michael. And then number 2, and I had never heard of her before, but Anna Eklund. So basically, it started around when she was 14 years old. She began speaking in tongues, strange guttural voices, levitating and clinging to bedroom walls.
Check, please.
That whole Spider-Man scene, in some of those exorcism movies where people walk up walls and stuff. So Anna Eklund was kind of the case that, popularized the climbing of the walls, per se. And her possession spanned several decades, beginning in 1912. So this was over 100 years ago, when she was 14. So her demonic possession was reported to be the direct result of a curse that was put on her as a devout Christian in 1908 by her caretakers. So we're talking about I believe her aunt and uncle had put a curse on her.
What in the hell?
And then she became demonically possessed. And then there was a priest, his name is Father Carl Vogel. He wrote an account of Anna's possession in a pamphlet that was published in 1936 called Begone Satan, a soul-stirring account of diabolical possession in Iowa. So this happened in the United States, 3 states to the west of where we sit right now, here in the Shadow Thing studio. Yeah. So basically, with Eklund, she did have a first exorcism that was performed in 1912, and it was successful for a time, and then she went on to be possessed again, and even more by even more demons in 1928. So they had the initial exorcism in 1912. She led a normal life until 1928, and then those burrito eating bastards came back. Oh my Lord, did you hear that? That was my stomach. So if the fans out there in the shadowy world of the Shadow Things podcast heard a guttural growl, that was my stomach because I'm hungry.
Because you said burritos.
I was talking about burritos.
Yeah.
Yeah, she became even more possessed by demons in 1928. And her second exorcism, which lasted 3 sessions, was held at a convent in Erling, Iowa, and was so grueling it resulted in a deterioration of Eklund's body. The demons were eventually exorcised, and Eklund went on to live her life only with milder possessions afterwards. So basically, she had exorcism 1.
Only.
Exorcism 2 by a bunch of more burrito-eating fuckers. And then it was kind of successful after that, and she just, had some occasional possessions.
She only had a couple occasional possessions
Right.
afterwards.
A lot of people that are really into the whole, this case, and they're really into demonology and the exorcism stories will know the name Roland Doe or Robbie Mannheim. So, a lot of people don't realize that the book, the 1971 horror classic book, written by William Peter Blatty, was inspired by not a book about a girl, and I believe it was right there in the Washington area, whatever you've seen in the movie The Exorcist, the 1973 horror classic The Exorcist, which was inspired by William Peter Blatty's 1971 book. It was actually about the initial case was about a young man named Robbie Mannheim or Roland Doe, whichever, and there's really no direct correlation or way you can tie an actual name into the case. It really just depends on where you get your information from. But Robbie Mannheim, I do want to say too that the Exorcism or the Exorcist book and movie were all based on fictional accounts of people possessed by a demon named Pazuzu. Mm-hmm. And in the actual case that inspired all of it, Pazuzu was not
A thing.
It was another burrito eater. Mm-hmm. So the 13-year-old Robbie or Roland, he actually dabbled with Ouija boards.
Figures.
And this kind of stoked this whole thing. So the entire family became overwhelmed by weird occurrences, including odd noises, furniture moving, objects levitating, only when Roland was around, however. So they reached out to their Lutheran pastor who, after monitoring Roland's behavior, declared that he should see a Catholic priest. So the family then moved to St. Louis, which is more of a recognizable location in some of the story that people might relate to, where he saw 3 more priests who, with the permission of the archbishop, carried out around 30 exorcisms on Roland in the psychiatric wing of a city hospital. So the actual real shit happened within a psych ward of a city hospital, not in some cozy Georgetown. That was the place I was looking for. Georgetown house at the top of those stairs that you see in the Exorcist film.
Yeah.
But it was in a psych ward in St. Louis. A lot of people know that, but all kinds of stuff happened, like messages appearing on his skin, just carved into his skin. Guttural voices, extreme strength were noted in one priest's diary before the young boy was eventually freed of malicious spirit with no memory of the event. So after it all happened, supposedly this young man went on to not only lead a normal life, but not remember anything about what happened.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's the famous, really root origin story behind the whole Exorcist film.
Yeah.
And William Peter Blatty book. And if I am correct or not correct about any of that stuff, feel free to drop us a complaint or a correction or what, dog me out at talk@shadowthings.net. We'll read your email and address it on the air. Number 4, probably the most known to people that don't even follow demonology, is David Berkowitz, son of Sam.
I've heard of this.
One of the most prolific serial killer, or the most notorious serial killer. So during the years 1976 and 77, Berkowitz would terrorize the residents of the city's 5 boroughs, murdering 6, wounding 7, in a violent spree he attributed to Papa San, a mysterious evil figure Berkowitz referenced in the letters he wrote from his crime scenes.
Wow. It's interesting.
Yeah. And here's the thing. After his capture, it was revealed that Sam was the dog of his neighbor, Sam Carr. So son of Sam Berkowitz claimed in his prison cell diaries that the animal was possessed by a 6,000-year-old man named Sam, an alcoholic who consumed human blood. I mean, where do you get this shit from?
What the hell?
Berkowitz also claimed that the spirit locked him in the attic and commanded him to kill through the dog.
Wow, love that for him.
Wow.
Ew.
Berkowitz has gone... Here's the thing. Berkowitz has gone back and forth since then, sometimes sticking with the possession story, the original account, and then sometimes recanting it. But to this day, he believes that the crimes were part of an epic struggle between God and the devil. So he was doing his part by breaking bad on people, in New York. But yeah, so there's four of the kind of top of the end cases that I was able to just kind of bring to the table and reference as maybe being some cases that you've heard of and maybe you did not hear of, but just some kind of interesting stuff there. And they're all different, involving different people and all that stuff. So did you research any cases?
I didn't. I just have personal stories that I've been dying to share because, well, they're personal. Not like me, but just people that I know have shared so many crazy, bizarre stories with me that have me scratching my head. I know that we talked previously before the show. There's a burrito eater that is winged, like a winged demon, I guess.
Pazuzu is winged, but...
Maybe that's it. I don't know, like a, Yeah, anyways. But I have a friend... You know her. I won't name drop, but when she was probably my daughter's age, she's 9, lived in a giant house, and she experienced all these kinds of like crazy, not possession or anything, but this is a story I wanted to share because it was like, I feel like there's a thin line between maybe this is believable or like, whoa, that's bullshit.
Right.
But to me, in my opinion, I don't have too many explanations for some of the things she told me. Like, so she had one of those like old school TVs with the VCR combo.
Yeah.
You just stick that bitch in and go.
VCR.
You know what I mean?
I put the grilled cheese in one side.
Oh, okay. But anyways, so she put a videotape in the VCR, and she was laying down for bed. She had her movie going. It was like a Disney movie, of course. She's 9.
Right.
And she said she could read at the time, obviously, but
Sure.
she said she never used subtitles. Obviously. Some people prefer she never used subtitles or closed captioning, but she swears up and down that she woke up. She had dozed off, she woke up, and she seen words in red, like subtitles, pop up at the bottom of her screen saying all kinds of bizarre shit.
Does she remember what it really said? Or
she said it popped up 3 times in a row.
3.
You can't find me.
The Trinity.
You can't catch me. You can't kill me. Had nothing to do with what she was watching. She was watching Aquamarine. That's a fucking mermaid movie.
Is that a Disney movie?
I think so.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure. It's a kid's movie.
It's a movie, not a cartoon, right?
No, not by any.
Okay.
No. It's a movie about mermaids, and she said in red, bold subtitles popped up, you can't find me, you can't catch me, and you can't kill me.
And that's not a line from the movie at all?
Not at all. Like, What the fuck? What is that? What is that? And then she told me that she has a lot of brothers and sisters. And in the house she was living in, it was a 2-story home. Like I said, it was a bigger home.
Right.
She had experienced a lot of your normal, like, shit moving on its own, doors opening and closing,
right.
Footsteps.
Right. Classic haunting
Classic.
signatures.
But she said one day, it was broad daylight, and they kept hearing banging on the side of the house. Like banging.
Right.
And these loud thumps were accompanied by this giant winged thing. She could see, not just her, other people could see this thing flying off of the side of the house and landing back on another part of the house. And that's what, like, the banging was. Like, it would just bang on the side of the house. A large winged creature. Wow. Call that what you want, but it's like, I just don't have an explanation for it. Could she be bullshitting me? Sure, but she wouldn't.
Yeah. Can you tell me the first initial of this person's first name?
A.
A, okay. I'll dig in my thought process to figure out who that is, but we'll talk about it after the show.
Yeah.
Wow, that's interesting. Now, does that person tie that event or that series of events into a demon?
Yeah.
Like, why not a cryptid or a burglar? Well, not the subtitling, but the thing in the side of the house.
Just the sinister, like, first of all, a message like that popping up on the screen.
Yeah.
I can't imagine would come from an old good lady ghost, or, you know what I'm saying? Like,
right.
Something a little more gentle. Messages popping up on the screen of her TV, of her dinosaur TV.
Right.
And just the loud, violent banging on the house. And, like, I don't know. That's just how she described all these things to me. She said, demon. I'm like...
Did she have any after events happen as far as mental health issues or any signs of oppression or depression or physical phenomenon occur to her personally or anyone in the house?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
Not that she disclosed to me.
But you never know. I mean, if something winged kind of sparks recollection to me, and that would be Mothman. Did this occur in Ohio?
It did.
Interesting.
It did.
But maybe not a cryptid, maybe a demon. I mean,
that's just the way she put it. Now, that kind of like brings to me, can you correlate demons with poltergeist activity? You know what I mean? Because she said that shit moved on its own all the time, and that's poltergeist stuff.
Sure. Well, I mean, knockings and rappings on walls, whether it be interior or exterior, are signatures of a classic haunting case. So I guess it really just kind of depends on where the whole winged part came in. Like, if you can really... So they saw a winged being,
They
correct?
saw a giant, I'm talking huge, this is how she described it to me. It was blocking the sun.
Oh, okay.
As it was moving. And she said this lasted for what felt like forever, but a few minutes.
Wow.
This thing was bouncing off the house and coming back, and they were all running from the windows. And
when you say they were all, you mean the family, the parents, perhaps?
No.
Who?
Brothers and sisters.
Okay, so were they maybe the same age group?
They're all over the place.
Okay, well, that's pretty spooky.
Yeah, pretty interesting.
Cool.
Yeah.
What else you got?
We haven't touched too much on angels.
Yeah.
But I guess the same thing is... I guess the same issue is like not even an issue. It's just like a wonder. When you think about if these things are real and you have people that have all these experiences. Kyle, my husband,
right,
told me about the same age as the girl from the other story. About nine.
Yeah.
And this kind of stuff, I don't really know if I have an explanation for. But he said that one time he was dead ass asleep.
Right.
In his room. He woke up fully awake. He says he's fully awake, and he looked into the corner of his room and he's seen the brightest light he'd ever seen in his entire life. Winged thing. It was just like a winged light. Kyle.
Interesting.
And he swears by it.
Okay.
Like you have stories you've told me you swear by.
Sure.
He's dead ass.
And when people are, you can tell when people are sincere.
You can tell.
Right.
And this little snippet chills me because, like, every time he tells me about it, I'm just like, whoa. Because he said it had wings, no features, just wings. He could see the lining of wings. He couldn't make out any like humanoid other than a head. And he said, I don't know how I feel about it, but he said that there was like a halo type situation, some kind of beaming something above the head.
Mm-hmm.
And he swears by it. He said he was very comfortable with the experience.
Wow.
As he was having it.
And visually, you're describing the perfect angelic poster child image.
Yeah. Yeah.
And coupled by the fact that he was very comfortable, perhaps that was an angelic experience.
He said he was very comfortable. And
wow.
After the fact, like when he woke up the next day and he's like, holy shit, that happened, a little discomfort came because you're like,
yeah, the fear of the unknown.
Yeah. But that really happened to him. I believe him.
Yeah.
100%.
And of course, and I know Kyle, of course.
Yeah.
If he were to tell me that story, I would probably just believe him right off the bat because I know Kyle to be a very no-nonsense person.
Oh, he's no bullshit.
I know some of Kyle's beliefs in like ufology and aliens and stuff.
Yeah.
I haven't talked to him much about ghosts, but he is not a person that really would enjoy making shit up. I mean,
you need to sit down and have a conversation with him because he's got stories.
I would like to hear that one.
Yeah.
Yeah. And not to jump, I want to jump to a couple things, but yes, we have not touched too much on angelology.
Yeah.
But before I go into kind of that, a story about my dad, who may be listening right now. When he was a young boy, lived in the centralist part, or the most urban part of Columbus, Ohio, back in I think this may have occurred in the mid to late 50s. He had his room in the basement, and his brother slept upstairs, and his parents.
So this was when he was a kid?
Yes. He may have been 10-ish to 13, 14, maybe a little younger than that, but he had his room in the basement.
Mm-hmm.
And he told me the stories a couple of times, and it always was the same thing, but he said that he slept in total darkness, and his bed was on one side of the basement, and then, it was kind of an elongated basement, so there was a long journey to the stairs on the other side of the basement.
Mm-hmm.
So it was pitch dark, and he was trying to go to sleep.
Yeah.
And he looks, of course, the cliche, at the foot of your bed.
Yeah.
So he looks down at the foot of his bed, and off in the distance, in the background, he sees this glowing thing. So he focuses, and his eyes plainly see what looks to him at the time of his age to be Jesus Christ.
Stop.
This is why I'm bringing it up after you
Goosebumps.
talk about angels and, angelic or biblical appearance. Well, he says it was Jesus Christ. The face, not a body, so it wasn't a full-bodied apparition, but
Yeah.
the face of Jesus Christ across the basement. And this is the spooky part. He said that it started floating towards him in a manner in which it would look like the person was stepping if you were to see the body. So kind of a waving, bobbing head. And it got closer and closer in the darkness. And you could tell as it got closer that it was the face of Christ. Scared the shit out of him.
Of course.
Jumped up, turned the light on, a little pull string light, looked over towards the foot of the bed, and there was nothing there. Gives me chills to this day.
Yeah, every hair on my body's up.
Yeah, and ironically, that's really kind of the only ghost story my dad has ever told me.
Wow.
Yeah, so, if he was the type of guy that would make up fantastical stories, he hasn't ever since. That was the one story for him.
He's a no bullshit guy either.
Yeah, I think so. That's the one thing about my dad, it doesn't lie, and
no.
But again, your stories of the subtitled, the girl with the subtitled stuff on her TV
So
and the banging
crazy.
outside in that case, around that age. My dad kind of around that age, maybe a little older, but impressionable ages. So
something to that.
and when I experienced my first experience with a full-bodied apparition that I described in our first episode, or a pilot episode, it was very real, but it happened. And this happened to him, and I was about around that age too. It seems like people are more prone when they're younger to have an experience that they can't explain. That initial thing that kind of either gets them into it or it doesn't.
So he was uncomfortable with that experience.
Yes, he was very uncomfortable. At the time it happened. So that's just kind of touching back on the whole angel thing that you brought up.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So angels, or angelology side of demonology, it could be an entire additional episode. And maybe we'll do that at some point. But in a nutshell, it's the polar opposite of demonology. You know, you have your various religions that see a different hierarchy of angels, and you know who's the various officers that help God. You know, maybe there's a treasurer or a city council type. I don't know, but angelology is another deep topic. It's the polar opposite of demonology. We're talking light versus dark and good versus evil. And here's my thing, and we get down to the top of the bottom of the podcast, and as we wind down, we got to talk about our beliefs. And here's the deal. Speaking of angelology versus demonology, in my opinion, and I talked to my good friend Kurt, who was on our second episode. We met at breakfast and we were talking a little bit, and I told him flat out, I said, you know, how can you believe, or how can one believe in evil and not, or good and not evil? You know what I mean? With light becomes dark, and so the yin and yang type, you know, premise.
Yeah.
So here's the deal. I believe that there, number one, are good people. I believe in an afterlife. So when good people go and become an energy on another plane, or let's call it heaven, I believe they're in a good state, they're in a good place, and governed by a good leader.
Yeah.
Call him God, if you will.
Yeah.
Now, I don't think that we can label, here's the important thing for everybody to listen to. I don't think you can label something as good or evil without the opposite of that. In order to call something good,
there's got to be an evil.
You're calling it good because you're forced to call it good because there's something opposite evil. Yep. So in the same thing, if there's something good, the reason why we call it good is because there's something evil. Or did I just mess that up? But vice versa. You know, there's a specific reason why we label things good and evil. And I think that if I have to have a belief that there's a heaven or a good state of existence in another dimension, I gotta believe that there is a hell. And I will tell you, I have personally spoke to someone who is a bad person, a very, very bad person. I don't know that he's killed people. Mm-hmm. The guy's a dick.
Yeah.
Perhaps he has, but he once told me, he said that he did have, somebody shot him. He did have a near-death experience. And during that near-death experience, he remembers falling to hell. And it was very real to him. Falling to hell. And the closer he got to the proverbial bottom of hell, to the final destination, he had the sensation of heat. Like he could feel it. He said it was literally hotter than hell down there. So he had the whole experience of seeing fire and hell, all on his journey to the bottom where he believes probably he should have been for being a bad person.
Wow.
And you'll hear those stories of people having near-death experiences and seeing the light and
loved ones,
the clouds, God, all that. But you'll also hear people account not going to a very cool place. So
that's the first time I've ever actually heard of somebody saying that, instead, as opposed to your normal, like, I saw a loved one. I've never heard somebody say that they went to hell. Yeah,
if you believe in prayer, pray for that guy, because, you know, if he's going to where he previously was heading to before he was snapped back into this humanity, he's going to hell.
That's crazy.
Yeah, so in a nutshell, personally, if I have to believe in good, I have to believe in evil. So if I believe in God, which I do believe that there is a supreme leader of the underworld. Well, I do want to say this as well. Not everything's a fucking microwave eating burrito demon.
That I believe.
Mostly everything is not a demon. Just flat out. It's certainly not the devil. I mean, it could be the work of the devil and all that, but...
Do I want to assume that my friend, when she was 9, experiencing all these things, do I want to believe that, she says it was a demon? That's what she said. This is something that you'd have to hear somebody tell the story. And you'd be like, yeah, that's a demon. But truthfully, could it have not been? And was it likely a demon? Probably not. Probably not.
And it's hard to say that because you don't want to take away from their belief and experience.
And I'm not, but 9 times out of 10, like you said, not everything is a demon or...
And then on the flip side, for me, it doesn't have to be a case where the Catholic Church handles it to be a demon.
Yeah.
Like, just because they say it was a case of demonic possession doesn't mean it really was. It doesn't make it even more viable than a case where there was not a Catholic priest or a bishop involved.
Ugh.
You know what I mean? So it really just depends on your beliefs. But I don't take anything away from anybody. And I know there's a lot of people that help people that supposedly are involved in cases of possession. You know, demonologists in the mainstream ghost hunting arena. I don't take away from them if they believe they've been involved in actual cases of demonic possession.
Yeah, that demonic possession is something I especially can't speak on because you don't know. If somebody says that happened, you can't tell them that it didn't.
At the top of the podcast, the first thing we talked about is that this is the deepest, darkest topic of horror or depth of belief that you can really get into.
Yeah.
It's the bottom of the barrel, literally. So, not a place I would want to go to or experience on this plane of existence. But
no, I'm good.
Yeah, so at some point we'll talk more about the good stuff and the angels and angelology as a whole and experiences that people have and maybe some famous cases. I can think of a few off the top of my head, but we'll save them for a future episode. But what are we talking about next episode? Do you remember?
I do.
You want to tell everybody?
We're touching on Hellier. So... I cannot be more excited because I've been binge watching for the second time.
Sweet. Hold on, the second time. Did you finish? So there's 2 seasons.
There's 2 seasons. I went through it once.
Wow.
I'm rolling through again.
Wow.
I'm coming locked and loaded.
Sweet. So you're really brushing up on all things Hellier.
I'm so excited.
Or as the man in part of that one of those earlier seasons refers to it as Ayer.
Ayer, yeah.
Down there in Ayer.
Down there in Ayer. Man, you watch it the first time and you're like, I'm telling you, and you told me this. You told Kyle this. You said from the first episode, you'll love it or hate it, but from the first episode, it doesn't stop. Like you love it immediately.
Right.
Or you hate it.
So I would encourage anyone listening to this third episode of the Shadow Things podcast to preemptively brush up and watch the short series 2 seasons of Hellier. You can find it on YouTube and Amazon Video, and there may be some other distribution
Prime
points.
Video.
Yeah. Watch it so you can know what we're going to talk about at the focus of episode 4 of season 1 of the Shadow Things podcast. I don't want to spoil it and get too deep into it because we're going to talk for an hour and a half about Hellier.
I almost need more than that, but we're going to condense it, and let me tell you, it's good.
Yeah, it's good. It's compelling. We'll talk about the premise behind Hellier, but that is going to be episode number 4, and it's one of the episodes it's that I've been looking forward. It's going to be a full-on review of not only the film, but the filmmaking, the folks involved, and anything else to surround that that series. I mean, it's just a wonderful,
Such a cool thing.
yeah, all-encompassing type experience for these people.
Yeah.
But yeah, very non-fictional, I might add. Very, very much so things that happened and were documented.
Super real.
Yeah, so we'll check that out on the next episode. But anything else you want to touch on? Any more demon stories or, bottom of the barrel bullshit we can get out?
I'm fresh out of the stories.
Yeah.
That's a lie. I've got plenty of stories, but
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to the angelology, touching more on that, because that's good stuff.
That's some of that's personal too. Like there's
that's
some hope there. Like if there are angels and angelology is a real thing, that's the kind of shit I want to really focus on.
yeah, not
I'm
potato eaters.
I already consider myself a good person, so I don't think I'm going to hell. But I'm going to focus on the angelology part for my beliefs. But yeah, another good episode, good talk with you, Vanessa, about all things shadowy in the demon world.
Mm-hmm.
And as we said, next episode we're talking all things hellier. So do us a favor and watch it so you know what the hell we're talking about. So you know what the hellier we're talking about.
Yeah.
But until then, we will catch you on the flip side. And remember, visit us at shadowthings.net. Drop us a line, an email at talk@shadowthings.net. And as a reminder, stay in the light and out of the shadows.